Hello, I'm Dr. Marty Harris, and today's topic is diversity and labeling, or what shall we call them? We will begin our module by taking time to think about diversity and labeling. In other words, what shall we call them? There are several types of diversity labels: race, religion, place of origin, color, heritage, occupation, and socioeconomic status, and, of course, the government's terminology. We categorize people as blue-collar, white-collar, country bumpkin, or city slicker. Government terminology is all about accounting mixed with political correctness. Consider the government diversity term, Hispanic. How many Hispanic populations in the U.S. can you name? Mexican Americans, Cuban Americans, Puerto Rican Americans, Latinos, which refers to people from Central America and South America. Then there is a fairly new government diversity term, non-Hispanic whites. This seems like a silly term to me. I have to stop and think. Okay, I'm white and I can't speak Spanish. Is that what they mean? The government and society have gone back and forth on political correctness of diversity terms, blacks versus African Americans. I had a friend that hated the term African American. She said, "Don't call me African. I didn't come from there. I was born here, and so were my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I'm black and proud of it." On many of the forms that ask us to indicate our diversity, the last term listed is other. Supposedly it attempts to address biracial and triracial, etc. I've always wanted to check it because it sounded more interesting than plain vanilla white. When you ask people what diversity means, many will say it means different races. Name all the different races you can think of without using skin color or place of origin or ethnicity. Go ahead, try it. Let's check out what the dictionary has to say about race. Race defined: one of the major zoological subdivisions of mankind, regarded as having a common origin and exhibiting a relatively constant set of genetically determined physical traits. The dictionary continues. On the basis of more commonly used criteria, such as pigmentation, hair form, facial and bodily proportions, mankind has been divided into primary stocks or races, each of which is regarded as including a varying number of ethnic groups. The primary stocks are Caucasian, Mongoloid, and Negroid. A number of groups such as Polynesian are of doubtful classification. That's the way Funk and Wagnall defined it in 1968. Jamie Lee Curtis and Laura Cornell take a different look at this. They present an interesting question through the eyes of a child. Is there really a human race? Julius Lester tells his young readers that if everyone took off their skin, underneath we'd all be the same. My daughter, Jenny, and her husband, Mawa, live in Vanuatu. Mawa's father explained to me that they were of the Melanesian race. Funk and Wagnall's old definition of race wouldn't even recognize Melanesian. The U.S. government will label my grandchild South Pacific Islander. I just call him my wonderful, marvelous, amazing Zaka. Let's examine the diversity term ethnicity. Name 5 different ethnicities without referring to race or country of origin. Here's the dictionary's definition. Ethnicity, of belonging to or distinctive of a particular racial, cultural, or language division of mankind. Switching to religion, name all the different religions you can think of. What wars or violent conflicts in the last 50 years can you think of that were brought about because of religious differences? There's even more to diversity divisions when it comes to place of origin. Continent or country, county or region. Irish immigrants to the U.S. in the 1800s and 1900s identified themselves by their Irish counties. Did you know that Switzerland has 3 regions? German, Italian, and French? What about identifying ourselves by our neighborhood? When I told my 8th graders in Arizona that I was from the south side of St. Louis, I suddenly gained their acceptance and status because they were from the south side of Tucson. Do you jump to negative or positive assumptions when you hear someone is from a certain place? What are your thoughts about the color of people? Do you like the term people of color? I never understood the application of colors to people. Growing up in St. Louis, I knew there were black and white people, but the rest of the colors didn't make sense to me. Why in the world do we refer to Asians as yellow? I thought yellow meant jaundice, and these people look healthy to me. Are the Indians really red? On a black and white TV, they look white, or perhaps with a nice tan. When I moved to the Southwest, I was confused about white versus brown. Why did one Hispanic parent repeatedly rave at me that he and his daughter were white? I agreed with him. I didn't understand his insistence. So I asked the Hispanic school secretary. No, she explained to me, Hispanics were considered brown, and he was denying part of his heritage. Is white really white? And just how many shades of white are there? I was the dark one in my family of blue-eyed blondes. Then how many shades of black are there? Too many to count. Does it matter? Historically it did when it came to passing as white. But it took our TV movies to teach me that part of history. What do these words represent when it comes to color of our skin? Pink and rosy are healthy, but dark and gray, green, and blue are not. Gringo sounds like a color word. Where did it come from? Some say that during the Mexican-American War, American frontiersmen were heard singing, "Green grow the rushes," or "Green grow the lilacs," around the campfire, and thus the Mexican soldiers named their adversaries gringos. That's one story, but more likely it came from the Spanish word grego itself, which means foreigner, or unintelligible gibberish. Pinko was a 1950s expression for someone who was sympathetic towards communism. It went with the expression, better dead than red, with red meaning communists. Sometimes we combine colors with politics to express our bias. Oreo was an expression used by African Americans to indicate a person was black on the outside and white on the inside. In other words, not true to their own ethnicity. Apple was an expression used by Native Americans to indicate a person was red on the outside but white on the inside, and not true to their own tribal heritage. In 1962, partly in response to the civil rights movement, the Crayola Corporation decided to change the name of Flesh crayon to Peach. Renaming this crayon was a way of recognizing that skin comes in a variety of shades. In 1999, Indian Red was renamed Chestnut in response to educators' requests. Contrary to popular belief, the original name of this crayon was not meant to represent the skin color of Native Americans. Instead, the name referred to the reddish pigment from India that was often used in oil paints. More recently, Crayola has come out with a series of colors to represent all the different skin tones. Speaking of crayons, in Shane DeRolf's delightful book, The Crayon Box That Talked, the crayons don't get along until a little girl helps them value each other. What is your heritage? How do you feel about your heritage? My maiden name is Oppliger, O-P-P-L-I-G-E-R, Oppliger. For a long time I felt like my German heritage was erased by the U.S. attitude towards Germans as a result of 2 world wars. Yes, I still like brats. I still hate sauerkraut, but I speak no German. Then I found out I was more Swiss German than German. It made me feel better about my heritage. Had I absorbed some of the bias against Germans? Recently, my husband explored our family tree using new software. My branch went back 9 generations to 1686. It included the countries Austria, Czechoslovakia, Germany, England, Switzerland, and 8 U.S. states: Missouri, Illinois, Minnesota, Ohio, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. My husband's branch went back 11 generations to 1493 and included Germany, Prussia, England, and 9 U.S. states: Illinois, Missouri, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So considering my family's diversity and that of our grandchildren, Zaka and Maya, perhaps none of us can claim one heritage. National Geographic gives us a new fact to ponder. When looking at all types of monkeys, they are 93% genetically the same. When looking at all types of humans, we are 99.9% genetically the same, and all from Africa. Finally, all this makes me think about Dr. Seuss's The Butter Battle book, published in 1984. It was an anti-war story, specifically a parable about the arms race, the Cold War, and the Berlin Wall. The book was so controversial, it was removed from many libraries. In classic Seuss rhyme, he tells the story of 2 hostile cultures, the Yuks and the Zooks, who live on the opposite side of a long wall. The Yuks wear blue clothes and the Zooks wear orange. The main dispute between the 2 cultures was about how to eat bread, butter side up or butter side down. An arms race ensued, including the triple sling jigger and the powerful poo-a-doo powder for the kickapoo gun. These weapons led to the development of a red bomb called the Bitsy Big Boy Boomeroo. When I first read this book, I didn't know it was a political statement. What I gleaned from this book was how much prejudice can be embedded into the words they and them. Common in our language, these two pronouns are often used to divide and separate and to put others down, such as, well, they should just learn English, or why don't they just... The most valuable pronoun is the one that helps people value each other. Us. Hopefully this lecture gave you pause to think about all the ways we label people in terms of diversity. It was designed to open our minds to this module's topic, cultural and linguistic diversity. In the next lecture, we will examine diversity and public school education in the USA. Remember, honoring diversity supports the paradigm. Education should be special. Thanks for listening.